Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, Peter George.
Every generation has characteristics associated with it, accurate or not, and millennials are no exception. Of course, some traits are the same in every generation, and some differ due to circumstances, trends, and their environment. So when it comes to speaking to audiences made up of millennials, or even more so, having millennials present, we have to adjust our thinking. To help us with that is today's guest, Tiffany Foote. Known as the Fearless Millennial, Tiffany helps people communicate effectively, overcome public speaking fear, and not let fear hold them back. Her passion is meeting people where they are and helping them get to where they need to be so they can live life fearlessly. Hi, Tiffany. Welcome to the show, and it's a real pleasure to have you here with us.
Hi, Peter. Yes, thank you so much for having me. I am very excited to be a part of your show today.
Tiffany, as speakers, we always want to be able to communicate with and to resonate with our audience. What is it that we need to know about the millennial generation and how they communicate differently?
Millennials communicate differently because communication drastically changed in our generation. I remember being a child and having the phone plugged into the wall. And now I watch my friends go live on my phone that is not plugged into a wall daily. We have things like TikTok and Instagram lives and Facebook lives, and the way that we grew up in communicating changed drastically because of social media and because of the advancements in technology. We grew up, using shortened words for text. Like I remember saying, what's up, but it was like WHTS UP, so abbreviated. And that's really affected the way how we've grown up and, into adults and in our careers and our jobs. Because obviously you can't speak that way in the corporate world. You can't text your boss and say WHTS up, what's up? And you can't have that super casual feel like you're on Facebook or Instagram Live when you're in corporate settings and you're trying to give presentations or speeches. So there's been in my opinion, I see a really huge disconnect from the way that my parents grew up and what they expect, like a lot of the CEOs and a lot of the older generations that are in corporate America, and my generation coming in trying to do selfies and Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives at work. It's so different, so drastically different. And so I think that's been a really big factor. And when you are talking to millennials and the younger generations, even Gen Z that's up and coming, have some grace with us because we're used to, and we're so accustomed to talking to everybody like we're on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. The only difference, though, is that unlike TikTok, we can't try 1,000 different times to get it perfect. When we're in corporate world and giving a presentation or trying to ask our boss for a raise, you only get one shot. You don't get to say, let me start over again, delete, and move forward.
Do you think that puts pressure on both people, let's say of my generation or your parents' generation and the millennials?
Absolutely. In the office that I currently work in, I am the only millennial here. And that's kind of how my nickname, the Fearless Millennial, got started, is because I came in as the only millennial amongst a sea of boomers. And they joked and said that I was fearless because I was tackling every task that they gave me. But it's really funny because when we talk about marketing or marketing a class or doing something, my first instinct is, we should do campaigns on Instagram. We should do a small Facebook Live and give like a taste of it, right? And our CEO is very much like, we should do email campaigns and we should work on our SEO and get higher Google searches. And both of them matter and both of them are important, but they're so different. And it's taken me and some of the other people in the office some time to kind of find that happy medium, because it is hard on both ends, regardless of how you're communicating. Or like I said, my first instinct is let's use social media because that's what I grew up on and that's my generation. And he's like, if people are going to Google search it, then we need to rank high. And both are important, but they're both different means of communication.
And can differ depending on who your target audience is.
Absolutely. My generation, the millennials, we're in our mid to late 20s, early 30s. Like, we're really settling in to our jobs, our careers, and things like that. And so that's my first instinct is if I'm going to market this to somebody who might need help public speaking, I want to market to somebody like me, somebody who's like, okay, I need to get grounded in my career. Or I want to move forward in my career. So what can I do to be better? Well, you can get better at speaking professionally in ways that the older or the generations prior to us are used to. If you want to advance your career, you have to be able to do both. You can't just do one. You have to be able to play in both worlds.
Now, how do you encourage a millennial who might not be used to speaking in that manner to get up and give presentations?
Yeah, I would say if you are like, I have an office full of millennials, none of them want to do presentations. What can I do to get them to do a presentation? I would have them pick something that they're really passionate about or that they really like about what they're currently doing. We will talk for hours about what we're passionate about. Millennials love a good cause. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but we love a good cause. And I like to think that we're not snowflakes, but we are a little bit more empathetic. So if your company does something for the community or gives back in a certain way or whatever, maybe have them start with that. Why does that matter to them? Why do they choose to work here? And kind of have them start giving talks or speeches on those types of things, and then have them work their way up and through more refined and, okay, well, I need to give you a presentation on this specific thing that you're super knowledgeable in, or this specific thing that you do a lot in. When I first came to work for the Leaders Institute, I had 2 job offers on the table. One was this, it was this one. And the other one was working as an account manager at a massage and chiropractic place. And the massage and chiropractor place, it was 4-day weeks, 3-day weekends every week. We got a 2.5-hour lunch break. And part of that lunch break was getting worked on, so we could get free massages and chiropractic care. And it was really good. It was a really good offer. But I chose the Leaders Institute, and I chose the Leaders Institute because we do so much to give back to local communities all across America. We partner with companies everywhere to give back. And that desire to help empower future generations struck a chord with me. And that's why I chose it, because I'm a millennial and I love a good cause. Anytime somebody asks me, how can you, that was the first thing that I spoke on when I came on board, was why I chose to work here. And I gave that reasoning. Nobody else in the company had ever thought about that being a perk as to why somebody would want to work here. And now we're in the process of hiring a few more people, hopefully a few more millennials, so I'm not the only one. And I make a point to bring that up in interviews, is to say, I work here because of what we do for communities, and like why that means a lot to me, because I know it's going to connect with them. It's going to mean a lot to them, not maybe more than salary, but like it's an added bonus to any health benefits or whatever, is what does your company stand for and what do you do? So having them start with something like that, I think would be a really good starting place for any millennial to start giving presentations or speaking.
Okay, now once they're given presentations, and because millennials are known to be maybe a bit more sensitive, we know that criticism or critiquing can sometimes be delivered and received actually differently than how it was intended. What's a good way to give millennials feedback on the presentations that you finally get them to get up and do?
Oh my goodness. Yes, we are definitely way more sensitive especially when it comes to criticism and constructive feedback. I think it's because we were always told that we did a great job. No matter what, we did a great job, or we gave our best effort, right? C's get degrees, things like that. We grew up with those kind of mottos. And I would say the first thing that you'd want to do is you say, hey, I need you to give a presentation. Provide very clear expectations of specific things that you want them to do. It's really hard for maybe not every millennial, but every millennial that I've spoken with, it says it's really hard to do something when they don't know what is expected of them. When they say, hey, give a presentation, and they give a presentation and they're like, that's not what we wanted. And it's like, well, what did you want?
Are you ready to work directly with Peter and develop your public speaking skills? Then schedule your free call with Peter at petergeorgepublicspeaking.com/call. Again, that's petergeorgepublicspeaking.com/call for your personal coaching and support. Now back to Peter and his guest.
That's not their fault. That's the person who's saying give a presentation, because you never meet expectations in that case.
Exactly. But it's more common than you would think. I worked for a law office a while back, and part of the job there was everybody had to read books and give book reports because they wanted us to keep growing and learning. My first book report happened to be my third day at the office. They had me give one. And it was a book that I sped read because I wanted to prove that I could do this. And then I got called out on our weekly meeting, and they were like, give your book report. I had never seen one. I didn't know what was expected of me. I didn't know what everybody else did or what was going on. So I did what I thought I needed to do, right? And there was no feedback. And I think that was almost worse than getting any feedback because everybody just stared at me with blank faces. And then I started to cry because I was like, I obviously did it wrong. Obviously, I did this incorrectly because no one is saying a word. And I went through things chapter by chapter, my biggest takeaways. And I was just like, okay, well, I probably bored them to tears because they're not saying anything, or they've all zoned out. They just forgot that I was done talking. And I felt so miserable. And then after I was crying, they were like, no, you did great. You were fine. Nobody told me what was needed. And they're like, well, it's just kind of, you do whatever feels best for you. And I'm like, that doesn't work. If you want people to get presentations, then you need to tell them what's expected and then have some feedback. I also like to say, if you're going to give feedback, do the compliment sandwich. Say something positive, like, hey, you did that really well. Here's something that you could work on for next time. I would say try not to give too many things to work on for next time because that can feel a little bit overwhelming, but maybe one or two. And then always end on a positive note so that when they leave, they're like, okay, well, at least I heard two positive things from that meeting or from that feedback and not just all negative or silence.
Yeah, and that goes for anybody. You're right. That's the difference between criticism and critiquing. Let's switch now to attire, and I'll tell you why. A while back, I was speaking to the VP of a corporation who, along with a younger manager in her company, had to give a presentation to a client. And it was, I guess, a fairly big client. And she told me that she was shocked when the manager showed up as he did. Now, how do we get leaders to get millennials to dress more appropriately, whatever that might be, either jacket and tie for a guy, or even maybe dress down to business casual, whatever is appropriate for that particular situation?
I would say this goes back to giving clear expectations. If you don't specifically say kind of the tone, this is a business casual meeting or this is a business professional meeting, and this is what that looks like, it's really hard for anybody to meet that expectation. When I graduated from college, one of my first jobs was working as a temp leasing agent in different areas. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. One of the best things that I thought that they ever did was every time I went to a different company or a different site, I got visual pictures of what I needed, of the style I needed to wear. Because some places were more casual, some places were resort style, some places were way more professional. And they would say, okay, you're going to this site. Here's the dress code. Here's the expectation. And that was perfect. But I've been in situations before where I've gone to speak at a meeting or go do an event. And I'm like, I'm going to dress business professional. And everybody there is in t-shirts, jeans, flip-flops. They have a beer and a koozie, and it's super casual. I'm like, I didn't need a blazer for this, you know? And then there are times where I've shown up and I didn't have a blazer. I wore a nice dress, maybe like the one that I have on right now, but I didn't have a blazer, and I could tell that like rubbed some people wrong. And so just went to my car and grabbed my blazer and stuck it on. No big deal. But some people just like a blazer. Now, millennials, if you say, hey, you need to dress business professional for this, I almost guarantee they're going to say, well, I don't have money to go buy that. Like, I don't have money to go spend on a suit or a blazer or nice clothes or heels because I have student loans that I need to pay, and I'm eating ramen every day. And like, I need my avocado toast in Starbucks. Like, those are going to be some of the responses that you get. And I had actually never seen a company do this until I got on TikTok in the middle of quarantine. But some companies will actually offer a clothing allowance for people to go buy professional clothes if they're going to be speaking professionally or doing a lot of things in the corporate world or for corporate events. They'll say, hey, this quarter you have $150 to go get something, right? Go get something professional. And then they bring in their receipt, right? And then that just kind of gets refunded to them, or they'll get a spending card or something like that, gift card or something, which is honestly, it's a really great idea, because if you want your employees to dress and kind of present themselves in a specific way, offer them the means to do it. Not everybody has the same access to resources as we think that they do, or even knows how to go about it. So if you give them a little bit of guidance on expectations or a boost in a resource, then they'll dress for you. There's no reason why they wouldn't.
What's another tip you can give us with just about dealing with millennials? A tip in general. We've talked about attire. We've talked about encouraging them to speak, expectations. What else?
I would say know that millennials, we're going to be way more nervous and way more anxious than probably any other generation you've dealt with. And I think that, again, goes back to social media and how everything in our lives growing up has had filters on it, has been edited. And so we're going to be more anxious. We're going to be more nervous. Even to this day, when my boss comes in here and is like, hey, I need you to do this presentation. I need you to teach this class. Even though I've done it 100 times, I'm like, why are you asking me to do this? Why me? And I'm like, I'm the communication coach. Like, of course he's asking me to do this, but I still get that feeling. And so I would say is know that they're going to be nervous and they're going to be a little bit sensitive to criticism, which I already covered. So I would say once again, have some grace with us. Know that they'll get better as they go on. Continue to give, even if they completely flop the first time. One of the most encouraging things I ever got is you're not going to be perfect, but you're not going to completely ruin anything. So even if you just say, hey, look, like, we don't expect you to be perfect, but just know no matter how bad it is, like, it's not going to ruin anything. The sky is not going to come in. The roof isn't going to fall down. Like, it's only going to get better from here. And take that and just each time that they do something, just let them get a little bit better. And they will. The more comfortable that they get speaking and interacting and learning how to communicate with everybody else, the easier it's going to be and the better at it they're going to be. But it's going to take a process. So just have some grace with us, okay? We didn't have, the same structure that those before us did.
We get nervous too.
Yeah.
Do they understand that too, that everybody gets nervous about public speaking?
I don't think so. I recently read a statistic that said people would rather spend a night in jail than to give a presentation. And I fully believe it. But I don't think everybody understands that this is something everyone deals with. When we're in classes, I teach the fearless presentation class pretty often. And I always ask them, okay, what makes you nervous? Or how many of you get nervous? Or what do you experience when you feel nervous? And everybody across the board always says the same things. Everyone. And I'm like, look, you're not alone. We are in this together. I started off being nervous and here I am today. 4 years ago, I would not have imagined that I would be sitting here on a podcast talking about how to communicate and empower millennials to become better speakers because I was petrified myself. I would feel like I was going to have a heart attack every time I had to give up to do a presentation in college. I was like, am I dizzy? Am I having a panic attack? What's happening? I don't want to do this. I would like tell my professor I felt sick. You know what I mean? I just didn't want to do it. And then I found out everybody else felt that way too. All of my classmates felt that way. Once I kind of realized that, I was like, okay, if we're all feeling this way, it's going to be okay. And then I got told, look, Tiffany, you're not going to be perfect, but you're not going to cause the end of the world with your speech. So just do your best. And I was like, that's really good advice. I'm not going to be perfect, but it's also not going to be the end of the world.
No, and someone I interviewed on another podcast, another episode, said that she's still looking for the death certificate out there where someone died from public speaking.
Yeah, something that people bring up is, well, I have the butterflies in my stomach and my heart's racing. And I'm like, but can people see the butterflies in your stomach? They can't, unless you're, like on the extreme side and you're puking your guts out, they're not going to know that you felt queasy or the butterflies. Same with the heart racing. People can't see your heart racing. Now, if you have a heart attack, again, on the extreme side and you faint in front of everyone, then they're going to say, maybe they didn't feel so great. But even then, they're not going to know that it was from your heart racing. Something that I like to tell people is you might be nervous, but a lot of the things that happen when you are nervous transitions or translates into energy to your audience. So if you speak up a little bit louder, or if you talk a little faster, if you move around a little bit more, people are going to receive that as energy, not as nervousness. So just take a deep breath. You'll do great.
Well, Tiffany, thank you so much for joining us and shedding some insight and some light on millennials and public speaking and working with them and how they view things. It's going to help a lot of people, anywhere from millennials up to people of my generation, I'm sure. How can our listeners learn more about you and the services you provide?
They can actually go to fearlesspresentations.com/thefearlessmillennial. There, they can see more about what I do for one-on-one coaching, the classes that I teach, and how I can help them individually and in groups.
That's great. Thanks once again.
Thank you for having me. That was fun. That was a good conversation.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tune in Monday when you'll hear another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George, and again Thursday for your next episode of Quick Bites, public speaking tips and techniques you can digest in 5 minutes or less. Until next time, remember, when it comes to speaking in public, you've got this.